From Eleanor Roosevelt High School to Yale University and now Harvard Law, Victor Kwansa is a success story for the Prince George's public school system. Through hard work, dedication, and great parental support, Kwansa is a shining example of what works in local education. We feature him tonight as we continue our series Children Come First, closing the achievement gap in Prince George's County. Imagine having your pick of going to any university in the country at no cost. That was the reality for Victor Kwansa just a few years ago before deciding on Yale and Harvard Law School. As a product of Prince George's County schools, Victor says it was a decision his parents made during his childhood that put him on a road to success. Victor Kwansa is the type of student that most parents would be proud of. Well-rounded, always up for a challenge, and someone who has a sincere interest in building intellect. Victor's go-getter attitude has made him a standout student from elementary to high school, so it was no surprise when he had a myriad of college scholarship offers to choose from before deciding on Yale University and from there attending Harvard Law School. But Victor credits two things for his success: his parents and his education in the Prince George's County public school system.
And so my mom actually waited in line for about 10 hours to make sure that I could get into a magnet school instead of the elementary school that was literally across the street from our apartment. And just having parents who were that motivated and that committed to get me the best education possible, I know that already set me on a different trajectory than so many of my peers.
We wanted them to aspire to the highest level of, competence, education. So right from the start, we knew we wanted them to be in the science field at the time.
Science has always been a big part of the Kwansa household, with an older brother pursuing a career in bioengineering and a father who is a biochemist. While attending Roosevelt High School, Victor interned with the U.S. Department of Agriculture working with DNA. Knowing the opportunities that science and technology could present to Victor, Mrs. Kwansa waited in line for 10 hours to enroll Victor and his brother into a magnet school as opposed to the elementary school that was conveniently located across the street. But getting them in was no guarantee. Enrollment was on a first-come, first-served basis.
I was determined, and I saw there were several other people behind me, so I wasn't afraid. I knew, we would get in. We were there very early in the morning, and they opened the doors around 4 o'clock. And so there were 497 people ahead of me. But if those people behind me were prepared to wait, I was too, And we got in, and it was very exciting.
Mrs. Kwansa says her determination to get her sons into the school wasn't because the other school wasn't up to par, but it was more a matter of giving them access to the best. That word, access, has sparked a national conversation, particularly regarding minority students. Two Washington Post articles discussing the achievement gap between black and white males and the number of parents withdrawing their students from low-performing schools received a strong response locally. The articles caught the attention of Victor Kwansa, who wrote, "Since I doubt that I would have sidestepped the achievement gap if I had not gone to the better schools in the county, I can truly sympathize with local parents who have transferred their children to higher performing schools. I was better positioned to test into one of the best high schools in the county and thereby gain access to courses that were at a high enough level to allow me to break through the glass ceiling."
Part of the reason is, I guess a lot of kids feel like they don't have the opportunity to take classes at a high quality level, or let alone access to teachers that are not only motivated but experienced. Obviously having passionate individuals enter the teaching profession, it's definitely a good thing, but when you combine the motivation and the experience, that's when you're really setting up a child to do well, where they almost have no choice but to learn. What can you do when you are presented with such a masterful teacher? And I feel that's what I was exposed to time and time again at a school like Eleanor Roosevelt.
The Washington Post article he responded to focused on the 2010 Council of Great City Schools report on black male achievement. The first line of the study reads, "Young black males in America are in a state of crisis." Continuing, quote, "Black males continue to perform lower than their peers throughout the country on almost every indicator."
It would be an easy out to just kind of blame the kids themselves, but I just can't buy that. Just even in my own experience in high school, for example, some of the kids who you would think really don't care about school they may actually value education a great deal, but for whatever reason, they may not have personally been led to believe that they could actually do well in school. So I actually remember one of my classes back in high school where there were two guys in particular who stood out to me. One guy, one day, he was actually, to a certain extent, like threatening the teacher, saying that he wanted to meet the teacher outside after school, not just a student, but the teacher. And the teacher was a pretty big guy, so this was a pretty bold statement from this student. Then I remember another guy who, yes, one day he was working pretty hard to finish up some classwork for a course that he must have been just extremely behind in. But these two same individuals, one day, I was just kind of sitting by myself and just doing my work, and then one of them just said to me, "Hey man, what's your GPA?" And it seemed like a strange question to me, just kind of knowing what, I guess, the experiences that these two kids had just had in the class. But after I told him my GPA, all he said was, "Oh, that's good, man, keep it up." And these are students who, on the outside, they could seem like they didn't care about school at all, but obviously at some level they had a profound respect for education. But even though we're both in the same high school, depending on their elementary school or middle school experience, they may just have never actually been ingrained in them that they could do well in school themselves. There are a lot of influences that may lead a young black man to feel that he can find validation outside of school, and that's not coming necessarily from the schools or the parents, but to a certain extent just wider society in general. So I feel that there are definitely a lot of players that contribute to the achievement gap.
Aside from pursuing higher education, Victor uses his time to mentor and motivate students, sharing his own experiences as well as through his love for poetry. But as Victor and his mother reflect on his accomplishments over the years, what's interesting is that they both believe that any student can achieve what Victor has done. It just takes the right amount of motivation and drive.
I think there are a lot of victors, but some of them haven't been identified. Victor's been going back, well, a few times. He went back to his elementary school, Penn Branch Elementary School, and Martin Luther King, and talked to the younger kids. And when he asked them what their future goal was, some of them might say basketball. He said, "What's plan B?" You know, because if you fail in basketball, what are you going to live on? So he wrote poems, and he shared those poems about achieving and all that, staying away from, drugs and what's going to kill you, and concentrating on the academics. Because when you got that, nobody can take it away from you.
You wrote in the last paragraph of that response to the Post that I look forward to the day when Prince George's schools have changed to such a great extent that students will not have to change schools in order to succeed. Are we moving closer to that goal?
I feel that even though it's been a while since I've been in the schools in the county, at least I feel that some of the changes that are taking place are going in the right direction. I can definitely attest to the fact that the kids in Prince George's County, they definitely have the ability to go to those same schools, whether it is Yale or Harvard Law School. But hopefully just all the players involved will be committed to that central goal of doing what's best for the kids.